Hi, YouTubers, it's me, Zipster. I gotta tell you, I reached just about, I reached just about another state of consciousness. It's, I can't even add anymore. Let me think. 40. It's hour like 44 of no cigarettes, and it's mind altering. I practically feel like have taken some kind of something that I've never taken before, because I don't really remember ever experiencing this with any of the drugs I've taken. But whatever. First of all, I do want to say something. I want to do just a little shout out, not even a shout out. I just want to Teresa Harris. I just got the really sweetest note from her. And, Teresa, I want you to know I'm with you this holiday. I know how hard it's going to be for you. I know your pain, and keep your chin up, girl. I think you're amazing. I think you're beautiful. I want nothing but the best for you, and I know you feel the same way about me. So big shout out to you, Teresa. I love you, and it's going to be okay. It's just going to suck for a while. Anyway, okay. So I'm going totally like stream of consciousness with this, because I don't even know what the hell's going on anymore. I played cards with Bitsy and the clients. That's what I call my parents now. Then it makes it feel more like an old age home or something like that. Yeah, and I totally lost. But then I came back upstairs, and all of a sudden I started really just humming. Everything's humming. I just feel this, incandescent energy that I don't know what to do with it. It's like, just turn the camera on and see what happens. So that's what I'm doing. So here I am. So then I was thinking about, wow, this one time, okay, I have to learn how to start stories, because everybody's like, oh, tell me your story, but I never know where to start them, because I always start them in the middle and I get all confused. But okay, Another Pretty Face broke up in, I think it was 1984, because, not for any big reason. It's just we were over it, and frankly, if I would have gone on much longer, I would have just killed myself, because I was really into the, just sex and drugs and rock and roll, and that's not a good place to be when I was like 34 then, and it's time to chill out. Anyway, so I had a little money. I sat around for like 2 years, and it was like, oh Jesus, now I gotta get a job. What the hell am I gonna do? I don't know how to do anything. But then I had some friends who worked for this dude who owned this big clothing store down in the village. It was called Unique Clothing, and I mean, it was the biggest shit in New York at the time. It was on right at the intersection of Bleecker and Broadway, downtown, right around the corner from the Bottom Line and stuff. And the place was just immense. And so I got a job there, and within 3 days, I was like a department manager. Then, like in another week and a half, I was like the assistant manager. But of course, I was the only one over like 22 there, even though I was 36, but whatever. But it was all just a bunch of kids, and me and Joellen, who was the general manager, she was the greatest person in the history of the world, and I still talk to her. Whatever. The amazing thing about being in New York is like, stars are just walking around there like regular people, looking like shit, acting like assholes, not really even giving a shit, and nobody bothers them, because there's just going to be another one around the block anyway, so why bother? But I remember, Daryl Hannah came in one day, and she looked beautiful. I mean, she wasn't wearing no makeup, nothing. She looked better than she did in any movie. She was just amazing. But then, people who was that little twerp, Anthony Michael Hall, that guy from, Breakfast Club, and then now he's, a hunk on television or something. He comes in, he's 12 years old or whatever, and he's all gooning around, and I'm walking out from behind him, carrying racks and racks of clothing that have to be hung up. This frickin' dude comes smashing into me, knocks the clothes all over the floor, and just turns around and I'm like, why do these people think they are entitled to run around acting like goons? And Howie what's his name, that dude on Deal or No Deal, Howie Mandel, he comes in one day, and we have a whole big hat section set up in the back of the store, just shelves and shelves of hats. So he decides to do his own personal comedy routine back there for our customers, so he's got an audience or something. And I mean, he was just being a douche and throwing hats everywhere, and then these people walk out of the store, and we're supposed to deal with this bullshit. It's who the hell do you think you are, Mr. Mandel? Now he's a quiz show host, or whatever you want to call it. But then I left there after a little while, because I got turned on to another place down the street that was run by this woman named Barbara, and it was a vintage clothing store. And I'm not talking junk clothing, this was vintage clothing. And it was right across the store. This was on Bleecker and the intersection of Bleecker and Leroy Street down in the village. And it was right across the street from one of those famous music stores, but it wasn't Manny's, that was uptown. I wish I could remember the name. But all the rock stars, especially guitar players, used to go into this store across the street to buy their stuff. So I would see, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, you name it, they would come in and out of that store. And occasionally, I dropped my pacifier. occasionally they would stop over across the street by us because we had a reputation. I mean, we'd sell like, $2,000 antique motorcycle jackets, really great exquisite antique jewelry, antique gowns, all kind of stuff. So a lot of stars would come over. But I remember once when I was quitting smoking, I'm sitting there, and the register was on top of a jewelry case right up by the front door. And we were right on a corner. So anyway, I'm sitting there, behind the jewelry case, and I see coming in the door is Billy frickin' Idol, and he's smoking a cigarette. And I'm like, excuse me, Mr. Idol, you can't smoke in the store. And he's like, okay, mate. So he's standing right outside, and he's like smoking his cigarette. And I'm sorry, but Billy Idol, before he got like all old, I know I have a lot of nerve, but he was just spectacular looking, and I was kind of dying for a cigarette anyway, and there's a good chance for me to talk to him. There's nobody else in the damn store. So when I'm like, excuse me, could you spare a cigarette? And he's like, don't you have any oil, mate? I'm like, well, no, I kind of quit. He's like, well, I'm not going to give you one. I'm like, oh, come on, please. So anyway, so we stood there smoking a cigarette, and he turned out to not really be that interesting, but he sure was good looking. But like another morning, I had just opened the store, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, who comes in the door but Matthew Broderick? Now, this is 1986 or something. So he was 20 years younger. This guy had like porcelain, flawless skin, just the most beautiful guy, and the sweetest, soft-spoken, beautiful. So he's come in and he said, someone told me that you had French nightshirts here, and could you show me where they are? I mean, these really great handmade French nightshirts that were like $300 and stuff. So he like picked a bunch of them out. He goes in the dressing room, and a couple of seconds later, I'm like hearing, excuse me, could you help me? I'm like, oh my God, help you in the dressing room? What do you mean? And he like needed help getting it off because it was a little snug and whatever, but it was really so sweet. There I am standing with Matthew Broderick helping get his shirt off. It was amazing. But another time, like poor that group Hall and Oates. Who's the one with the Oates? It's Daryl Hall and John Oates comes in. This is like after the band broke up, and they hadn't worked together in a really long time, and John picks out like this $3,000 vintage motorcycle jacket and like lays it on the counter, and I'm like thinking to myself, and I said, well, I didn't think to myself, I said to him, are you sure you can afford this now that you're not with Daryl? He's like, he was incensed with me. He threw his credit card and he's like, don't worry, I can afford it. Yeah, great. Then one day, like Bette Midler came in, and we had these all these blouses that one of my friend of mine we actually had in there on consignment. It was really great, all houndstooth stuff. And Bette Midler comes in and she's carrying her kid, whatever her kid is, in that really, oh man, her really most unattractive husband. He's like a Russian comedian or something like that. I don't remember exactly. But she's like going through the blouses and she's really liking them. And then she looks at the price and she's like, ew, I can't believe how expensive these are. And I'm thinking, Miss Bitch, all the money you make, you can't afford $90 for a blouse. But whatever. So another day I'm sitting there, and this like short woman comes in, and she's like with this really handsome, like Italian looking dude. And I don't recognize any of them. I don't even know what's going on. I'm kind of looking at the dude because he's like way big, handsome, big, tall, strapping, handsome, big New York accent, all this stuff. Then the woman starts talking, and I'm like, oh my God, that is Cher. And I take a closer look, and I never realized that Cher she's itty-bitty. I mean, she's like 5'6" or 5'7", and he was really tall, so she looked really itty-bitty, and she wasn't wearing a wig, and she was just like dressed in a leather jacket and jeans, so she looked kind of raggy, like an old rock and roll hag who's hanging around with some young dude. But anyway, so she comes up to the counter, and she's like picking out, she's like, oh, Georgianne would love that. And I knew her sister's name, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Cher, it's Cher, it's Cher. And so I'm telling her about I got an autograph from my friend Carolyn, who was in Yonkers, because Carolyn loves her and all this. But then when she finally whipped out her credit card to pay for the stuff, and man, it's so cool when you see an American Express card and it just says, yeah. It's like, wow, this is totally Cher. But, oh my God, I really talked for a long time. I'm going to get back to more of this again later, and I'm really sorry, but boy, I got to keep talking or I'm going to just lose my mind, you guys. I'm sorry about this. I'll talk to you later. Thank you!